The power and passion of humankind is helping to shape society and can be exemplified by the small NGO called Africa on the Ball, who are changing lives through football. But first I want to reference the young Dutch philosopher and historian Rutger Bregman, who at the age of 25 published his first book entitled Humankind, which aimed to debunk the historical stories and assumptions that humans are fundamentally bad. William Golding's famous book, The Lord of the Flies, is just a made-up story. Bregman tells us of the true story of a group of Tongan boys who stole a boat, were swept out to sea, were shipwrecked on an island for several years, but did not, in fact, descend into chaos and destroy each other. They can tell their true story of survival thanks to their kindness and collaboration. Bregman states that the success of our species is due to the survival of the friendliest. Those most able to collaborate survived. Trade has been our key asset. For Homo sapiens to start trading, he had to take a risk and trust he would not get clubbed over the head when trying to exchange fish for fur. In our more recent commercial past, a gentleman's word was his bond. Where is that trust today? Today's society can be better framed as the survival of the shameless, thanks to social media eroding our moral boundaries with clickbait and algorithms enabling ever lower levels of acceptable behaviour. Shameless behaviour that's tolerated with no consequences. Our obsession with bad news versus good news, which is in fact the norm for humankind, but thus is boring. Bad news has thus been monetized to the point that we have a reality TV narcissist as a US president who admits he can walk down Fifth Avenue, shoot someone, and get away with it. How does society come back from this? How can you help put the spotlight on good news and help discover the authentic joy and fulfillment through engagement in real life? So I was inspired by Bregman's recent lectures entitled How to Start a Moral Revolution. He gives society real hope based on the great humanitarian historical successes of the past. Women's right to vote, the abolition of slavery, to name just two. These great movements were started by small groups of kind, passionate, dedicated people committed to the cause. They created powerful positive changes for humanity, which in the context of time were 100% against the tide of society. As I listened to these lectures, which I encourage you to do so, I realized that my energy and commitment had been given to just one of these small movements for positive change. This is in a place where in just 3 years' time, 40% of the global youth and the largest number of countries below the poverty line are located, Africa. So I was inspired by Africa on the Ball, who are changing lives through football. It was started 15 years ago by two young men when they were just 21. Andrew was a student at my son's university, Stirling, in Scotland, where he now lectures. He was a passionate footballer and was inspired by the 2010 South Africa World Cup and volunteered to be a coach out in Zambia, where he met Kelvin. Kelvin was born in Kalingalinga, an overcrowded, low-income suburb whose name means lingering at the gates of Lusaka. Here, the majority of the youth are out of work, with less than 50% of the boys and less than 30% of the girls completing secondary school education. Like many in Kalingalinga, Kelvin lost both his parents by the time he was 15. But whilst playing football, aged 21 in Norway, he realized just how the sport had changed his tough early life in Kalingalinga for the better. So rather than continuing on this path to Western-style riches that football had afforded him away from Africa, he took the amazing decision to be driven to go back to his community in Kalingalinga and help change the lives of others in his community. A mind-blowing act of kindness and compassion and dedication. But why football? Because football permeates more corners and transcends more creeds and cultures than almost any other single human construct on this earth. It has unrivaled power and passion. The research shows not only the health benefits, but how it instills the values for people to empower themselves to develop better lives and often go on to become leaders to develop their communities. They play and learn together how to win. They learn resilience on how to train hard and how to lose. They build life skills and social bonds in a safe place that transcends societal divisions and thus create confident lives with brighter futures. And so Andrew and Kelvin set up a community football club that is so much more than just a pitch in Kalingalinga. They set up grassroots outreach programs for education, health, gender equality, social enterprise, and infrastructure. African Ball trains and equips young people, young players to become young volunteers, using the power of exercise to connect with the thousands of school children in the locality and inspire conversations with them about their daily challenges, thus developing the next generation of community leaders with their shared experiences. This is especially important for the women and girls in Africa who face more barriers to education due to many dropping out of school when they start their menstrual cycle. This is due to lack of products, lack of knowledge, and the general expectation to take care of the household. So Africa on the Ball seeks to break these barriers, supporting with school bursaries, products, menstrual health hygiene information, and most importantly, giving them more access to skills and academic scholarships to help them get into the workplace. There are many powerful stories of success of football, the power and passion, enabling them to have better lives, but that they give back to their community by volunteering, such as Agnes, who came to play football at just aged 8, had her school fees paid for, so she went on to study computer science and is now studying public administration at the University of Lusaka. Matthew had his dream fulfilled to become a football coach, and thanks to a scholarship from Africa on the Ball, he not only leads some of the players, he has a chance for a real job. BIS just last October raised £400, which enabled 2 more young people to become coaches and have a chance for a job. One of the most exciting successes for me was the breaking of the gender barriers for the women and integrating an over 35s and over 50s women's teams. Integrating the mothers and guardians into the programs for gender equality and education breaks huge stigmas and taboos in Africa. It also brings tremendous integrity to the program. Because one thing in Africa is you still do not mess with the mamas. You may mess with the police, but the mamas still own the circle of trust. And thus it creates valuable mentors with real integrity to inspire the young people and to create generational change. One great moment was being able to give scholarships to 5 of these over 35s members of the women's team, and they were given 5 scholarships to gain general hospitality skills. They were given this last year, and in February they graduated, and 1 month later they all had jobs. One of those ladies, Anastasia, always gives a little kick in my heart, where she gave the quote, "I'm no longer just a girl trying to get through the day. I'm a woman with a specialized skill and a clear path forward." This is changing lives through football with power and passion, kindness and friendliness. So with the World Cup beginning in just a few days, we're reminded that football has the power and passion to make significant positive changes to help shape society, more than any government and organisation, in my view, today. It does a lot for society globally, but it's uncoordinated and has tremendous power and passion still to be unlocked. Yes, it does a lot of bad with corruption, but let's stay focused on the light and the positives. This was highlighted 2 years ago in Berlin, when the first Football for Sustainability Summit was held, and the ex-England captain Rio Ferdinand said, "The players have the power to make real change. With full collaboration and transparency, we can make real change. Footballers want to help. They know they have the power and platform, but it's always as individuals. There's always an element of ego in the room. Humility must play a big part. And when we sit as equals, with no one in the spotlight for the good of what we're trying to do, then we have a real chance for change." Kelvin is the great example of being his authentic self, with true humility, who needs to have the spotlight shone on him. The Africa on the Ball concept that he and Andrew started helps to communicate and channel the behemoth global power and passion of football that could make significant positive changes in society. But for me, and more importantly, it's a blueprint for the survival of the friendliest. So from teeny beginnings, this small movement for change is helping to shape society with kindness, generosity, dedication, and passion from other people as well as bigger organisations such as the Rachel Kandananji Foundation, Rachel being the second highest female transfer fee player in the world who was born in Lusaka and plays in San Francisco. So with the kindness of others throughout the world, we hope that the Africa on the Ball can empower more communities to change more lives, one goal at a time. This is all through the power and passion of football with no egos. But how will you help change society? How can you help put the spotlight again on the good news, as I said? Volunteering and fundraising is not just a CV builder. It's how to be authentic and actively kind versus passive and indifferent. So find a movement for positive change. It doesn't have to be football. But actively use your innate sense of good and innate sense of friendliness. Channel this and help shape society versus being distracted by the shameless. We're defined by what we do, so always try to be part of the solution with actions, however small, and not part of the problem, judging with words and hashtags. Mother Teresa famously was asked, "How did you help the hundreds and thousands of people?" She said, "I didn't. I just started with one, and then I went to help the next one." The ripple effect from these people she helped is how to make real change. So when you start helping others with small actions, even for people, especially people you will never meet, I guarantee you will find the true fulfillment and joy of a life that's engaged in real life rather than distorted algorithms. So whatever it is, try to do the right thing when no one's looking, because that is the definition of integrity. With more integrity comes trust. With more trust in society comes the survival of the friendliest. And so I challenge you to be actively on the ball and use your innate sense of friendliness to help shape society. Thank you.